Ok, donc tout est bon. On attend encore quelques minutes, Monsieur Maaza, et je vous donne la parole, d'accord? Je vous présente et je vous donne la parole.
Pas de problème. Merci.
Ok, je pense que on peut commencer. Donc, Monsieur Jody, on commence.
Faiz, vous pouvez commencer à présenter la
Oui.
structure et on y va.
D'accord, très très bien, très bien. All right, so thank you very much for everyone that joined us today. So today we have the third presentation from Professor Malik Maaza. Professor Malik Maaza, for those who didn't saw his previous presentation, that are actually recorded in our YouTube channel. So if you want to check the previous one, you can still go in our ASCA YouTube channel. So Professor Maaza is a native of North Africa. He holds a PhD from the University of Paris 6. He's the current incumbent in South Africa of the UNESCO UNISA Africa Chair in Nanoscience. He is adjunct staff from the University of South Africa and the National Research Foundation of South Africa. He is also a fellow of various academies, including the African Academy of Science, the European Academy of Arts and Science, as well as the National Academy of Science of India, the Islamic Academy of Science, and the Royal Society of Chemistry and of London, so of the UK. Professor Maaza has been bestowed several awards and accolades, among which the African Union Kwame Nkrumah, sorry for the mispronunciation, Award for Excellence in Science and Technology, and the Galileo Galilei Award by the International Commission for Optics. So Professor Malik Maaza is going now to, and I can give you the, sorry for the, I've been a little bit confused by someone. So Professor Maaza, you can start.
Thank you, Program Director, Professor Faiz, Honorable Professor Judy, senior engineer colleagues participating in this event. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good evening. It gives me a special pleasure again to interact with you and share with you some of our findings. And in effect, today what I would like just to stress on is that our R&D translation focus to move the research from the laboratory, from purely fundamental science to a laboratory prototype, and hopefully to take it to a TRL 7, whereby to present it to potential technological applications. This again, this talk is given within the framework of the Nano AFNet, which is the Nanoscience African Network, as well as the UNESCO, UNISA, Itamba Labs, NRF, Africa Chair in Nanosciences and Nanotechnology, I will stress mainly on the UNESCO Africa Chair. As I mentioned, one of the major partner of the UNESCO Chair, Africa Nano Chair, is the University of South Africa, UNISA, which indeed has been celebrating this year, 2023, its 150 years anniversary. It has 9 campuses in the 9 wilayats, if you wish, or the 9 provinces in South Africa. And it's the unique university in the African continent, which has 1 campus out of its native land, that is out of South Africa, and that is in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And that is following an agreement between the African Union, where the IAU headquarters are, and the University of South Africa. In terms of enrolled student, it has 450,000 students enrolled each year, approximately, and these students are from different parts of the world. It's an ODL type institution, as well as a research intensive institution. Approximately 13% of the diploma delivered by degrees delivered by in South Africa are awarded by the University of South Africa, UNISA. UNISA has 2 Nobel laureates as alumni, and in terms of science-wise, research-wise, it's of course multidisciplinary, but when it comes to nanoscience and nanotechnology, there are 2 major institutions in that regard. Nanoswater, the Institute for Nano-related water applications and studies, and the UNESCO UNISA Africa Chair in Nanosciences and Nanotechnology that I have the honor to be bestowed upon. Itamba Labs, which is the other partner of the third partner of the chair, in addition to the UNESCO and UNISA, Itamba Labs is the largest national facility of the NRF. The NRF is the equivalent of the NSF, the National Science Foundation in the USA, and Itamba Labs is an accelerator-based science facility with a robust material division. It has 2 centers, 2 nodes, so 2 sites, one in the Western Cape, where I am, in Western Cape, in Cape Town, and the other one in the Gauteng province, Johannesburg and Pretoria. It has the largest 200 MeV separated sector cyclotron in Africa. And I would like just to mention on this, whenever you go to do MRI or a PET in France, in the US, in Canada, in in the North Pole, in the South Pole, in Japan, in China, in India, in Brazil, if that MRI uses sodium-22, that sodium-22 becomes and produced by this institution, Itamba Labs, you are sure 100% that it comes from this laboratory which is the world supplier of sodium-22. And recently, Itamba Labs has launched what we call South African isotope facility on the 9th of June last week. Just to tell you that more or less this Itamba Labs is an accelerator-based science, but carrying out research, certainly fundamental science, but also involved in technology, in producing isotopes, not only for the local market, but the international market. As I mentioned, it's the world sole supplier of sodium-22. Today, colleagues, what I would like just to share with you is more or less our philosophy that we are implementing as a number of other higher education institutions in the land of South Africa, in the country, to try to move from, how can I say, or to add value to the fundamental science and fundamental research, and to move to technological applications. And that is moving from what we call TRL 3 to TRL 7. just to have a clear idea what we are speaking about is that the international community came with a scale of what we call TRL, that is technology research level, and TRL1 is where the basic research is done. TRL2 is where the applied research is done, technology, concept, and application formulated. And TRL3, where proof of concept is established at the lab level, and then confirmed at TRL4, whereby the prototype developed at the laboratory level is, how can I say, verified and validated, and it goes to TRL 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So at TRL 7, it's where the system is integrated and where a pilot plant or system is demonstrated, validated. What is sure is that where as much as the red region is, it's mainly in the laboratory, the R&D, starting from the fundamental science when the idea is born to take it to the market at the TRL 9. But anyway, I would like to share with you more or less at our level, at really our modest level, how we try to move from TRL 1 to TRL 3, and hopefully from TRL 3 to TRL 7. And colleagues, what happens is that the University of South Africa in particular, where the chair is headquartered and administered since 150 years, the university was focusing on knowledge production and training of the workforce of tomorrow and today and the past. But the university has now decided that we are ready to embark more or less in R&D translations and to follow the path of the Anglo-Saxon and the North institutions, such as if I may take the typical case of MIT, Princeton, Harvard, and so on, whereby the R&D is taken from the lab to the market. So, well, indeed, we are at the birth stage, but we are going to say we have to start, and that is what the university has decided to do. And there were therefore a number of fields have been identified, among them the nanosciences and nanotechnologies. So, colleagues, the outline of today is that I would go through, how can I say, some typical examples as highlighted here. All of them are related to energy. We know that energy is common to all disciplines, whatever market, whatever field, whatever sector you go, energy is there, is a major component. Then I would go and share with you the Nano Horizon, which is an open access accredited journal that I hope the Algerian community, both in Algeria and the diaspora, would, how can I say, consider as a preferred journal for publications. And after that, I will follow up on the suggestion of Professor Judy and Professor Faiz for the creation of a potential Algerian nano society. Colleagues, as I mentioned, the UNESCO Chair and the Nano AFNet are official platforms of the African Union and the UNESCO, and they are based and headquartered in both in the University of South Africa in the Gauteng region, Pretoria and Johannesburg, as well as in the Cape. So all the fellows that we do receive, being it junior or senior, they do have an opportunity to visit both sites. Initially, colleagues, as I mentioned before, we were targeting mainly training postgrad at the MSc and PhD level in the field of nanosciences within a robust human capital development of MSCs and PhDs. And the other one is human capital mobility of emerging scientists and senior scientists to bring them down to us here in South Africa to allow them to conduct their research project either with us or with their own projects. And we move towards this program. Both of them have been started since 2005. They were operational up to this 2023, and now 2023, after such successful stories, having trained a number of fellows from different corners of the continent. Now we are embarking in a nano innovation and R&D translation in general through innovation patenting and spin-off companies. And hopefully this is the stage which would allow us to showcase and to convince our different governments to invest more in science and technology. As I have showed last time, colleagues, we do train a number of fellows from different parts of the continent, as well as senior and emerging scientists. These are postdocs and emerging scientists, as well as some senior scientists behind. And the gender aspect is extremely pivotal for us, whereby we do consider that, so to respond to the SDG 5 as defined by the United Nations. The fellows that we train, they end by getting their diploma either from the University of South Africa alone or other with the host original institutions like University of Manar in Tunisia, University of Helwan in Egypt, University of Azad in Iran, and so on and so on. By nature, the field of nanosciences and nanotechnology, and in particular our research activities, they are multidisciplinary, without any border, without any frontier between disciplines. We have fellows in the engineering, in material science, computational, environmental, health science, agriculture, geosciences, name it. And you do understand that all these disciplines, yet indeed the field of nanosciences and nanotechnology is broad and multidisciplinary by nature. The field of energy covers all the fields, all of them, each and all, without any problems, without any limits, please. And in that regard, I would like to share with you some of our activities in the field of nanosciences and nanotechnology related to energy. All our activities are related with the United Nations, Sustainable Development Goals, and of course obey by the mission of the UNESCO. And I would like to share with you, colleagues, while I have shared with you some examples like last time with zero hunger in terms of nanofertilizers, and also quality education and the gender equality, as well as the SDG 6 for clean water and sanitation. I would single out today some just example in SDG 3 and SDG 7, as well as SDG 9, and as well as SDG 11, just as a typical example to show you how we responded to the political agenda of the United Nations, as well as the political vision and mission of each country which is a member of the United Nations. Nonetheless, I would like to share with you that how we move from pure research, fundamental research, to applied, and to to R&D translation. In the case of a good health and well-being, colleagues, we embarked in a program whereby we try to use traditional knowledge, which is well known, well established, but unfortunately not recorded. I do remember when I was in the mountain في القبائل, I have never visited a doctor. Whenever I am sick, my My grandmother or my mother would know, you should take a sheikh, you should take X, Y, and Z, a concoction. And indeed, that knowledge is a traditional knowledge. And colleagues, we have a tendency to neglect that traditional knowledge, knowing that more than 96% of the modern medicine, more of 96% of that comes from natural molecule, which has been duplicated in the lab and or synthesized artificially. But the original molecule is from a natural extract. So in our case, we embarked in that regard. And for each of these programs, what we do, we create a group of postdocs and the PhD students or MSc students, put them together, guide them, and allow them to can take over that project. And in this case, for example, we have fellow from South Africa, from Botswana, from Egypt, and from Iran. Of course, involving some senior scientists from overseas. One of our major problems in Southern Africa, colleagues, is skin cancer, the melanoma skin cancer. And this is due to the sun burning. And this is not proper to Southern Africa, but also to North of Africa and at the border, at the top part of the Sub-Sahara. So, colleagues, in this regard, what we have done, we look to traditional medicine, and we have found out that, in effect, there is an African traditional community that is called the Khoisan. Khoisan are the first settlers of Southern Africa, and they use what we call a plant that is called the Hoodia gordoni. And this plant, they chew it, and these people have no fat at all. And it was discovered that this Hoodia gordoni is very effective in stopping thirst and stopping hunger. And it was discovered that the origin of this property is this quite a large biocompound that is called P57. This is the molecule which is at the origin of stopping or killing the fat, destroying the fat. So what we have done is that we took this Hoodia gordoni and we used it to biosynthesize at room temperature with zero energy input, cerium oxide decorated with this molecule. And it happens that the cerium oxide decorated with this is very effective in stopping the UV. It stops the UVA, the UVB, the UVC. As you can see, the signal is at the background level. So it stops the UV effectively. In addition to that, the Ross activity of such particles is nearly zero. That means that it does not affect the DNA. It does not, the Ross production is so minute that it does not affect or destroy the DNA at all. And here, colleagues, this is a purely traditional knowledge which was given a scientific proof, a confirm validation, and now we are trying to find out, explore possibilities with L'Oréal, UNESCO, with the L'Oréal company to find out if one could make cosmetic of this. The same thing applies, colleagues, with an iron oxide, which is used by another black community. It's called the Himba, and the Himba people lives in Namibia, in the north of Namibia and the south of Angola. And these fellows do not clean, do not shower. ما يغسلوش رواحهم خلاص. Yet, how can I say, they are extremely clean. Why? Because no bacteria, no skin cancer. They are the community which have the least skin cancer melanoma in the southern hemisphere. Why? Because they take a nano powder, and this nano powder that they use, they mix it with the milk of goat milk, and they make a formulation and they put it on their skin, whole skin. And colleagues, as you can see here, in effect, that it stops the UV, as you can see, and it stops the infrared. Not only it protects them from the skin cancer protection, it protects them from the UV, but also it stops the heat from the sun at least near 50%. That means it protects their skin from the burn. And it was found that these nanoparticles that they use are extremely very effective when it comes to E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus in terms of antibacterial, and the response is not as good as the standard traditional streptomycin, but it is good one, and it's a cost-effective one that they can produce themselves locally. So these are, colleagues, just two typical cases of how we could use the traditional knowledge, validate it scientifically, and try to translate it in R&D, translation and patenting. And of course, for such, it is necessary to go for some computational, quite a number of experiments, yes, in the lab, purely fundamental, but with the target that it can be applied from technological side point of view, at least in the cosmetic field. And also behind that, colleagues, there must be a sound, robust computational capabilities to show that it is effective also. And I would like to invite all the participants who are participating and who would like to embark in modeling and using, how can I say, a high computational performance center in South Africa. They are more than welcome to contact me so we can facilitate for them to access these massive computational centers. That is the one which is related to the health. I would like to share with you, colleagues, something which is related to energy. As I mentioned, energy is a major component in any discipline. It's a must. We could maybe not have water. We could not have. We could allow ourselves not to have X, Y, and Z, but not energy. We are obliged to have energy. And in this regard, colleagues, I would like to share with you a typical example. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I would like to share with you, colleagues, a typical example of hydrogen. Again, colleagues, if you remember, I have used this Enquist profile. This Enquist profile tells us, or gives us more or less, the different technologies relatively to their CO2 footprint. All the technologies which are on the top generate a huge amount, have a huge CO2 footprint. Those and the negative do generate the least CO2 footprint. And colleagues, the bar here, the first bar here, is the hydrogen. Hydrogen, the green hydrogen, is the one which would allow to minimize the maximum of CO2 footprint. And in that regard, colleagues, if you remember, hydrogen is a light element and so on and so on, but hydrogen is extremely dangerous. It's a hazard. It's explosive. Whenever you have a small amount of hydrogen, if it reacts with the oxygen in air and so on, you have a huge explosion. So for such a colleagues, we need to sense any leak of hydrogen. You cannot have, on ne peut pas se permettre d'avoir une bonbonne d'hydrogène dans un bus ou dans une voiture et comment dirais-je, et ne pas détecter un leak. Toute fuite d'hydrogène doit être détectée. And therefore, it's a must to design, engineer room temperature hydrogen gas sensors. And for such also, colleagues, what we do, we identify those who have the right skills, and we train them at the beginning if they are at the PhD. But if they are postdocs, we how can I say, we rely on them because they have done their homework, and we colleagues, we proceed. And in this case, we have a fellow from Cameroon, a fellow from Sudan, and a fellow from South Africa who embarked in this. And as you can, colleagues, see, hydrogen is involved in a number of sectors, in buildings, in industrial feedstock, in transportation, in as a power generation, and so on and so on. And it is very well established that hydrogen, by the expert, it is established that hydrogen will be one of the major power generation sources. And colleagues, as I have mentioned, hydrogen, we need to have effective hydrogen gas sensing in hydrogen generation units, in hydrogen storage, and in hydrogen distribution units, as well hydrogen utilization, being it in transportation, being it in buses, whatever. And also the hydrogen the hydrogen safety is of importance in hydrogen infrastructures, economics, safety, and so on and so on. Here, colleagues, I would like to share with you what the three fellows that I have shared have managed to make. They have managed to make VO2 nanorods, and these VO2 nanorods have been demonstrated to be extremely sensitive to hydrogen. As you can see here, this is the resistance versus the time. Here, what we do, colleagues, we have air, we remove air and we inject hydrogen. The resistance goes very high. Therefore, what we do, we minimize the amount, we remove the hydrogen here. Colleagues, we remove the hydrogen here, and we inject again the hydrogen, but with the less amount, less than 140, that is 90. And we see that, oh gosh, the resistance increases extremely very well. So the gas sensor, it's a chemi resistor, so the resistance increases again. Then we remove the hydrogen again just to check what is the limit of detection. So we remove the hydrogen here, and therefore we inject hydrogen, and the resistance increases again, and so on and so on. And colleagues, as you can see, from 140 to 10 times less, 14 ppm, we do still see some change in the resistance. And this is a gas sensor at room temperature, what we call chemi-resistor. It requires zero energy input, colleagues. We don't add any energy, but it detects at around 14 ppm. So that is the safety. Somehow it's slightly lower than the threshold of explosion. And therefore, this was a work which was published in this specialized hydrogen energy journal. And I must admit, we wanted to patent it, but unfortunately, and retract the paper, but unfortunately, this fellow Aline Simon was obliged to publish, otherwise she cannot finish her PhD. The other case that I would like to share with you, colleagues, is, as you can see here, again, the Enquist diagram is our compass. As you can see, among the technologies that would have minimum or negative CO2 footprint is air conditioning and insulation improvements. And for such, colleagues, as I have mentioned last time, in this case also we have identified the right fellows, postdocs, and emerging young scientists, as well as a PhD working on the VO2. We gave them this project. They handled it very well, and colleagues, they came with a fantastic smart material. As you can see, the heat exchanged extensively between the house or the car is mainly the glass windows. So we need to have to find a smart coating in couche-mince, un matériau en couche-mince qui permet de stopper l'infrarouge du soleil ou de le laisser rentrer. And therefore, this smart coating is again a VO2, because this VO2 have what we call this VO2, colleagues, have what we call this phase transition from a semiconductor to a metal, therefore from a transparent infrared to a blocking infrared, therefore from allowing the heat from the sun to come in to a situation to block the heat from the sun. And yet the transition temperature is 68 degrees Celsius, but we can reduce it to 25 degrees Celsius and get this kind of colleagues thin films or thin coatings, smart coatings. As you can see, at low temperature, the transmission in the infrared region is quite high, while when it is hot, the transmission goes down, and it's reversible. When it cools down, it goes up. When it heats, it goes down, and so on and so on. So this smart material allows on glass windows of a car or nafidan ta'dar or whatever. When the heat, when it's cold, the heat from the sun is transmitted through the window. When it is hot, the heat is reflected, is blocked by this smart coating on a glass window, and without any input of energy. This is the beauty of it. No energy input at all. It's smart. That material, when it's hot, it becomes blocking to heat, to the infrared radiation from the sun. And when it's cold, it allows the heat to come in because this phase transition. And colleagues, this is a typical house. I'm really struggling on this case here because I'm really inviting as much as possible young and senior participants to embark in this field, because it's a really hot subject. It's truly heat subject, and it's easy to be done, to be implemented. As you can see, colleagues, here is a window of a toy house with a thermometer inside without any heat, and illuminated with a lamp which is equivalent of 1.5 sun. As you can see, colleagues, without the coating, the temperature measured by the thermometer inside is 42 degrees Celsius, while the one coated with this smart material, the temperature measured by the thermometer is 33, nearly 9 degrees Celsius different, which is huge, absolutely huge from thermal load aspect. And colleagues, you would understand that this is a photo taken in Singapore. As you can, colleagues, you can see each flat has its own air conditioning, and this air conditioning, colleagues, does consume a huge amount of energy to be functional. And instead, colleagues, if we do use just this smart material, which would act independently without any energy input, so we will gain in terms of energy. I would like just to give you a number, colleagues. Currently, worldwide, we have around 1.6 billion, 1.6 billion units of air conditioning. And by 2050, it is expected that we will be having around 5.6 billion air conditioning unit. And these 5.6 billion units, to operate them, you need the current energy consumed by the USA, plus the current energy used by the EU, plus the current energy used by Japan. So you do understand, colleagues, that it is not sustainable to use such a huge energy just for air conditioning. Impossible, c'est pas possible. ماشي من المعقول. So, colleagues, it's necessary to embark in in smart window applications, and in particular, colleagues, in having these VO2 coatings. While this, colleagues, is while this is geared towards skyscrapers and so on, there are still small units, normal architecture that is used in how can I say, in standard houses currently, and for such colleagues, one should devise paints, and these paints must be highly reflective, extremely highly reflective, above 90% of the reflection, to ensure that to use what we call radiative cooling in buildings. And in that regard, colleagues, we have embarked in a project related to SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. And for such colleagues, these fellows have embarked in that regard from Botswana, from Sudan, from South Africa, from Iran and Pakistan. And in this radiative cooling, colleagues, because the limitation of time, in effect, I should have stopped it, but doesn't matter. Allow me just to continue this. What is sure is that the colleagues, we are receiving a large amount of light from the sun during the day, in particular in some regions, north of Africa, in particular the Middle East and the rest of, and all those who are in the same latitude, sorry. And for such, it is possible to use what we call radiative cooling. And colleagues, what does it mean? That means that we need to have a paint which reflects, which must be highly reflective, in effect above above 85%, not 95%, above 85%. And if that paint is effective like this, therefore, during the day, such a paint on a wall will reflect the bulk of the radiations, and by reflecting the such, it will keep only some which would be emitted during the night in a form of infrared radiation. And these infrared radiations, in effect, are converted to infrared in this range. And this heat from the building, which is released during the night, is corresponds to the atmospheric transparent window. Therefore, this heat is ejected and goes out of the atmosphere to deep space. And therefore, the paint cools down more or less during the night, the building, and during the day, it will minimize that heat load. And for such colleagues, these fellows that I have mentioned to you embarked in fabricating and engineering a biomimic pigment, which is as whitish and as highly reflective as the traditional oxides in a paint. This Zadano, this barium sulfate, and this TiO2, they do require intensive technologies to make them, while here it is a biomimic system. And colleagues, as you can see, the reflectivity of this biomimic in violet color, as you can see, it is very high. It's above average, above 90%, and it is therefore a very good radiative cooling white paint. And you can use it, of course, in traditional houses, in the rural areas, and how can I say, and the standard buildings in normal cities. But I would like, colleagues, to share with you the last example. Yet indeed the time has been exhausted, but I would like to share with you the methodology to make a white paint at home, in effect, and you would be able to, in effect, these colleagues, it is not new. We know it very well in our villages in North of Africa. We do use it. We call it Algier. If I do remember Algier, it's the calcium carbonate. But how to make that calcium carbonate? You can make it from rocks, indeed, but you can make it also from le coquillage. You can, how can I say, grind it, but also you can do it in another way, colleagues. You can do it in another way. You can make it in a form of nanoparticles. Let me, colleagues, you can make it in a form of nanoparticles, and these nanoparticles, in effect, you use the CO2 that we want to remove or to sequestrate. Now you take this CO2, you mix it with a calcium or a potassium or a magnesium chloride, and you mix that to synthesize calcium carbonate, a highly whitish powder, and that whitish powder is nano, so it diffuses and it's cut slightly like a hell. And colleagues, here is the reflectivity, as you can see, of this nano powder. It is above 80%, and it is effective white paint, and it's effective radiative cooling system. Colleagues, I would like just to go to the, how can I say, to this slide. Colleagues, while through the fundamental science that we do, we, how can I say, we train a large cohort of postgrads, MScs and PhDs, but also involving emerging and senior scientists. But from this level 1 and 2, now we are leapfrogging to level 3, whereabout we try to inculcate the spirit of our colleagues and partners, R&D translations, and therefore entrepreneurship, and therefore research which would have a social impact. And hopefully we will be reaching level 4 by training a highly skilled, multi-skilled workforce for the future society. And I would like just to also inform you that there is a Nanoscience journal, an African journal, which has been initiated by Africans and the colleagues from the north. Not because it's African, it has no value. No, colleagues. The fellows who are publishing with us are publishing in Nature scientific reports and Nature journals and science related. So with our limited resources, we are indeed at that level now. Because we have acquired quite a lot of knowledge. And colleagues, this Science Open Nano Horizon has offices in Boston, in Berlin, and Budapest, and it's supported by the Royal Society UK, by Science Open International Germany, as well as UNISA Publishing. You are more than welcome to apply, colleagues. Go and Google Nano Horizons and you will get it. And please submit sound contribution, because the editorial committee is really very tough in view of ensuring the possibility of quality and excellence. And the last point that I would like just to add, colleagues, and I will take over from the suggestion of Dr. Faiz and Professor Judy, is creating an Algerian Nano Society. Since, colleagues, the inception of the NNI in the USA and in Europe, we came in Japan, we also launched a number of nano societies all over the African continent, starting from South African Nanotechnology Initiative and others. Thank you so much, colleagues. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا لك Monsieur Maaza, يعطيك الصحة. Thank you very much for this excellent presentation. Actually, we got a lot of questions, personal questions also relating to, I think, each one research. So maybe we will also, if you accept, we will also share your email. So if they got some questions, and maybe you can, of course, I am sure that you will be able to address even to other people that might be like specialists in some, like area of research that they are asking. So yeah, definitely yes. So I will I got some like I took almost the question that were asked like most recurrently. So I will start to ask you this question, and if you can please be short, so we can try to get a maximum of questions from the audience. So the first one is my question. So I would like, first of all, to ask you if you think that we can develop nanotechnologies in Algeria, even if we don't have all, as you know, top instruments to characterize these used nanotechnologies.
Yes, without any doubt at all. The capabilities are there. And how can I say, in terms of infrastructure, we could exchange samples, we could host fellows. It's not a problem. It can be implemented easy.
This is great. This is great. And so we got lastly, so a lot of question about your journal, so Nano Horizons. So I know that in Algeria, especially for like the PhD students, the graduate students, to be able to graduate, so to get the doctorate, they should publish in a Scopus indexed journal. So is Nano Horizon indexed in Scopus or not? Or not yet, maybe?
Not yet for the moment, but by the end of the year, inshallah, we will be able to have it indexed.
Inshallah, great. This is a great. Yes. This is a great news, actually. Okay, so this is also a question that is related a little bit of the la mode du moment. So if you have the an answer, that will be good. Est-ce que vous pouvez donner la relation ou bien l'utilisation aussi de l'intelligence artificielle dans le développement des nanotechnologies? Peut-être un peu compliqué comme question, mais bon.
Non, absolument.
Elle a été posée vraiment très souvent.
It is. In effect, we are starting. I have 2 Iranians fellows who are working on it as much as we would definitely use machine learning and artificial intelligence in it. But you know that we have to validate. So, but definitely, yes, I have 2 Iranians currently working on that.
Great. This is great. Also, another question that came, I think, for most of the people that were that are actually recurrent participants. So they also show your previous presentation. So they were asking if you can please talk further about the nanotech-based fertilizer that you mentioned in the last talk, actually, if you remember.
Yes, what I will do is that, how can I say, I will send you, program director, I will send you the copy of my talks here. And once the, how can I say, once the patent will come out soon, and I think I will send, how can I say, I will send the paper related to it, the patent related to it, to the colleagues, one. And second, I will start. We will start a training session, virtual one. You have my fellows in the lab who will be synthesizing and going through each phase. So to ensure that any person, wherever issue who is he, will be able to duplicate.
That's great, because like a follow-up question was like related to the development, like how you can actually develop, or what are the techniques that you use for develop this technology. And so definitely, if you can, like, if people can see from scratch from a person that actually developed that technology, that will be great. That will be great.
Yes, definitely. It is in our views. In effect, it's a part of what we call Grand CO2 Africa Grand. Grand, c'est comme grand en français. Le GR, c'est for green, absorption, neutralization, and decarbonization. This is an African continental initiative that we embarked in, and all of this, what I'm mentioning, will be shared open source for everybody.
Thank you very much. Good luck for that. Another question is related to the previous slides, one of the first slides. If you can please tell us what is the common known of the antibacterial material that was cited like in the first slides, if I remember it.
Well, I do suspect, sorry, no.
Yeah, sorry, it was a little hard.
Yes, it is this one. This one is a rock that is, it's a mineral that is used by the Himba people. And the Himba people are a black community which lives in the north of Namibia and the south of Angola. Qu'est-ce qu'ils font? Ils prennent cette roche, ils ont ces roches-là sur place, ils les prennent, ils les, comment dirais-je, ils les crachent pour avoir de la poudre. Et il se trouve que cette poudre-là, c'est de l'oxyde de fer sous forme lamellaire. Et cet oxyde de fer, comme vous voyez, c'est nanométrique. Regardez-moi le scale here, c'est nanométrique. Et c'est l'oxyde de fer. Et cet oxyde de fer, eh ben, il présente des propriétés extraordinaires. Il stoppe le UV et il stoppe l'infrarouge. Donc, il protège la peau de la chaleur et des ultraviolets. Et quand on teste les trucs antibactériels, les propriétés antibactérielles de ça, eh ben, à 200 grammes par litre de ça, vous voyez, c'est aussi efficace, c'est, comment dirais-je, ça protège, ça a un effet antibactérien. On peut penser qu'on peut aller à des concentrations élevées pour arriver à la streptomycine level, mais là, je pense on va arriver au niveau de toxicité. Donc, les collègues ont préféré s'arrêter là.
Oh, c'est génial. Donc, vous avez en fait une molécule qui en fait présente les mêmes ou même
Oui.
meilleures activités antibactériennes telles qu'un antibiotique qui est dans ce cas-là la strep.
Et surtout que ça, on peut le fabriquer localement. You know, there is no need to go to pharmacy to buy it. You make it yourself locally. That's ce qui est l'avantage.
Correct. Amazing.
Surtout, excusez-moi, docteur, et surtout un collègue, surtout c'est que ça, ce qui est extraordinaire, c'est qu'on prend un savoir-faire indigène. C'est vraiment prendre un savoir indigène et lui donner une raison scientifique. That's what the beautiful in it here.
Ouais, c'est comme les recettes de grand-mère, quoi.
That's it, yes. Yes, les recettes de grand-mère validées scientifiquement.
Ouais,
That's
ouais.
it. That's the point.
En tout cas, en Algérie, c'est en fait ce qui se fait le plus. Hein. C'est chercher les plantes médicinales qui étaient usées sans savoir, ou bien aussi en sachant un petit peu les bienfaits dans telle maladie ou je sais pas quoi, ou bien autre disease. Et à partir de là, on essaye de voir quel est le principe actif qui est en fait responsable de cette thérapeutique. En fait. Donc oui.
Absolument. Absolument. Je prends par exemple le Houdia Gordoni, celui-là dont j'ai parlé, où les collègues ont identifié la molécule active, le P57, this one. Et ça, c'est extrêmement efficace. Et là, c'est un produit qui fait ravage aux States et au Brésil, ainsi de suite, où parce que ça tue le fat, ça, it removes fat.
Très bien. Une autre question, c'est what, une seconde. Yes. What are the steps? Peut-être que ça s'est passé un petit peu rapidement au début, but what are the steps to move from level TRL1 to highest level in our laboratory, I think, like in Algeria?
Well, I think the most important here, the most important thing is to identify, to identify. Generally speaking, we always start by basic research, and when we read the literature, we find out that what we are studying has a potential application, and therefore, I think wisely one should go from TRL1 to TRL2 to TRL3 and TRL4 potentially. And then our job is not to go to that one. And once we reach that one, I think we should work with the experts and those who are interested by that property, and either from the public or from the private sector, both nationally or internationally or regionally, and look for a joint project and take it from that level, TRL3 to TRL above TRL7.
And Monsieur Maaza, generally, what is the timeline to get to the TRL?
It's a long to reach TRL7. It's long. Here, TRL1, TRL2, TRL3, at least here for within the framework of a PhD, 3 years.
Yeah, so it's
possible.
All right. Maybe we will get the 2 last questions. So 1 second, I will check. Yeah, so or in your knowledge, so because there were a lot of questions related to nanotechnology in health science, so in biology, medicine, etc. One of the question was, what's the importance of the nanotechnology on vaccine development?
Well, the first vaccine anti-COVID, as you were discussing by BioNTech, was in effect a nano vaccine. It was the drug which was coated with, encapsulated in nano capsule, and that was the effective one. And now with the RNA type of approach and so on, certainly. What is sure is that the anti-cancer, the first anti-cancer proven very effective for a long time drug is a nano. The brain electronic devices, integrated into electronic devices and neuronal growth are nano. So if we take the case of all this research, which is at the interface between neurosciences and integrated circuits, it's all and each and all nano. So I think the revolution would come from interfacing life sciences and nanotechnology. It's a pity that, there's a diagram that we do share within the nano community showing that. But yes, I think artificial intelligence, machine learning, nano electronics would definitely converge with the life science and the neuroscience in particular.
Yes.
Si vous permettez, Faiz, j'ai une question qu'on me l'a posée et j'ai envie de la reposer au professeur Malik. Il pose la question, est-ce qu'il y a des réglementations ou des problèmes d'éthique ou de droit qui se posent spécifiquement à la nano, indépendamment du domaine d'application. Il y a des problèmes d'éthique en médecine, dans tous les domaines, mais et la question, est-ce qu'il y a des problèmes de règlement, de droit, d'éthique qui sont propres à la nanotechnologie?
Yes, yes, there are. There are, in fact, et les réglementations, la communauté européenne, le US FDA and so on, et au Japon, la même chose en Chine. Et il y a des régulations, aussi en Afrique, il y a des régulations, sauf que les régulations n'ont pas été drastiques au début parce que ils voulaient donner la chance à cette science émergente de, comment dirais-je, de s'exprimer bien parce qu'elle présentait des potentiels de marché, de market, et donc ils n'ont pas imposé des régulations strictes. Par contre, il y a des régulations générales et dès qu'il y a une application des nanos dans le domaine de health et tout, les régulations du health s'appliquent. S'il y a quelque chose dans dans l'eau, les applications des nanos dans l'eau, les régulations standards pour l'eau s'appliquent. Mais il y a des régulations générales qui chapeautent le domaine des nanos, yes. Et l'OCDE et le FDA ont imposé clairement des règles de base. Yes, il y en a. Et on est obligé de les suivre.
Merci, Malik.
Je vous en prie.
Shukran, Monsieur Maaza. So I think we will stop here the questions. And
Thank you.
also, yeah, I would like to remind that we will have the last webinar with you, inshallah, on the 1st of July. So if people, we will have other questions, of course, you can ask them also directly in the next webinar. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Judy, for being here and moderating the session with me. Thank you, Professor Maaza. It was really interesting, and we will definitely build any kind of network between nanotechnology people that actually use nanotechnology in their research or maybe their day-to-day work life. And thank you for all that were with us today. And voilà, يعطيكم الصحة.
الله يعيشكم سلامة. باي باي.
السلام عليكم. Au revoir.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.